Morning. Our new class is broad spectrum antibiotics. Among this, we will see tetracyclines as well as chloramphenicol. These agents are active against a wide range of organisms, which includes bacteria, protozoal organisms, rickettsia, mycoplasma, etc. That's why they are known as broad spectrum antibiotics. The first group is tetracyclines. Because of their four ring structure in the nucleus, the term tetracycline has come. Now the classification of tetracycline. Classically we have tetracycline, oxytetracycline, doxycycline, minocycline as well as demiclocycline, and later there's a newer addition. It's a glycyl cycline group. It's a TG-cycline. Depending upon the duration of action, we can further classify these tetracyclines into short acting, intermediate acting as well as long acting agents. The short acting agents includes tetracyclines as well as oxytetracycline. These agents has a half-life of around 6 to 10 hours. And among the intermediate acting, this agent demiclocycline, it has a half-life of around 16 to 18 hours, and the long acting agent usually associated with 18 to 24 hours of half-life, and the agents include doxycycline as well as minocycline. Now let's see the antimicrobial spectrum of these tetracyclines. As I already said, these agents are broad spectrum agents, so they have activities against gram positive as well as gram negative bacilli as well as cocci. Then spirochetes, chlamydia, mycoplasma, rickettsia. These are the usual targets of these drugs. Now let's see the mechanism of action of these tetracyclines. These drugs are basically the inhibitors of bacterial protein synthesis. This tetracycline enters the bacterial cell through passive diffusion as well as active transport. Initially, they enter through the porine channels of bacterial cell membrane by passive diffusion, and later there will be an active transport across the cytoplasmic membrane. These are actually bacteriostatic agents by inhibiting the bacterial protein synthesis. This goes and binds to the 30S subunit of the bacterial ribosome. And as you know, there is two sites on the 50S subunits. There is an acceptor A site and a peptidyl P site. So these agents, the tetracyclines, inhibits the binding of amino acyl tRNA, which is essential for the protein synthesis, to the A site. So there is no binding of amino acyl tRNA to the A site, so there will be inhibition of the peptide chain synthesis. So this is the pictorial representation. As you see, there is a 50S as well as 30S subunits, and in the 50S subunits there are two separate sites, P site as well as A site. The amino acyl tRNA comes and binds to the A site for the peptide chain synthesis. Our tetracycline, which goes and binds to the 30S and interfere with the binding of amino acyl tRNA to the A site of 50S. So there is inhibition of binding of amino acyl tRNA to the A site. So the peptide chain synthesis will be inhibited. Now let's see a few important points about the resistance of tetracyclines. Even though these agents are known as broad spectrum agents, now the spectrum of activity has come down due to the development of resistance in susceptible organism. There are different mechanisms by which the organisms develop resistance to tetracyclines. Among this, the first one is development of certain efflux pump. These efflux pump actively pump out the tetracycline group of agents, so there is no action of these agents. Among these, TG-cycline is not susceptible to the efflux pump, and there may be development of decreased permeability and certain synthesis of certain ribosomal protection proteins. That means these ribosomal protection proteins protects the ribosomes from the binding of tetracycline. So these are plasmid mediated, and there may be certain liberation of certain inactivating enzymes. These enzymes inactivate the ring structure of tetracycline, so there is no action of these tetracyclines. Now few important pharmacokinetic features of these tetracyclines. Following oral administration, they are incompletely absorbed. They have high chelating property with calcium, iron and zinc, so they form insoluble complexes. They have high volume of distribution and mainly distributed to liver, spleen, connective tissue as well as prostate. These agents are binds with calcium, so they are deposited in calcium containing tissues like teeth, bone and certain tumor with high calcium content. They crosses the placenta and as well as they are secreted in the breast milk. Among the tetracycline, the minocycline and doxycycline are better absorbed. They have high lipid solubility as well as they do not interfere much with this divalent or trivalent cation. The most of the tetracyclines they are partly metabolized in liver and excreted unchanged through the urine, and the major metabolism is by glucuronide conjugation. And the route of elimination for our tetracycline is mainly through the kidney by glomerular filtration. There are certain tetracyclines which follows the non-renal elimination. It includes doxy, mino as well as tigecycline. Among the tetracycline, doxycycline is mainly preferred even if the patient is having renal failure. The major routes of administration for our tetracyclines include oral as well as IV routes, and the tetracycline drug is administered usually only through oral route, and mino and doxycycline they can administer both IV as well as oral route, and the tigecycline is administered only through the IV route. Now let's see the uses of tetracyclines. First is doxycycline is used as a drug of choice in rickettsial infections, brucellosis, Lyme disease as well as relapsing fever by the rickettsial organisms. And then among the sexually transmitted disease, the first one is uh, the uncomplicated genital infection by the Chlamydia trachomatis and acute epididymitis by Chlamydia as well as Neisseria, and lymphogranuloma venerum as well as primary, secondary and latent syphilis. In all these situations, tetracyclines, especially doxycycline, is preferred. Then skin and soft tissue infections. Among this, in case of tetracycline resistant or complicated cases, we should prefer tigecycline, and in MRSA like infections, doxy or minocycline is preferred, and in acne vulgaris, doxycycline in low doses is preferred, and as a prophylaxis of anthrax and in respiratory tract infections, especially streptococcus infections or Haemophilus influenza or those by atypical pneumonia causing organisms like mycoplasma or chlamydia pneumonia, doxycycline can be used as a drug of choice. Coming to the other uses, these tetracyclines are effective for the management of intestinal amoebiasis along with metronidazole, and for chloroquine resistant malaria, and for the management of peptic ulcer which is induced by H. pylori, and another agent demiclocycline which opposes the action of antidiuretic hormone in kidney. So this agent is effective for the management of SIADH, that means syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion, and also this minocycline is effective for the eradication of those people who carries meningococcal bacteria in their nasopharynx. Now let's see the adverse effects of tetracyclines. The most common adverse effect is irritant effects, which produces epigastric distress like nausea, vomiting as well as diarrhea, and doxycycline is associated with odynophagia as well as esophageal ulceration following intramuscular or IV administration, which may lead to pain as well as thrombophlebitis of the administered vein. And certain organ specific effect in the liver, they may associated with fatty infiltration or exacerbation of jaundice, or very rarely acute hepatic necrosis. And in kidney, there are very rare case reports of reversible Fanconi syndrome. Even that cases are associated with the use of outdated preparations of tetracyclines. And among the tetracycline, demiclocycline is associated with nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. That's why this agent is preferred in SIADH. And the most important agent which can be safely used in patients with kidney disorder is doxycycline. Next is phototoxicity. The important agents associated with phototoxicity include demiclocycline as well as doxycycline. In bone and teeth, these tetracyclines they form certain complexes with calcium. So if you use these agents during mid trimester of pregnancy, there will be impairment in the deciduous tooth formation in the baby. There will be brownish discolorations. And if you use this agent in a 3 to 6 month old baby, it will leads to the it will leads to impairment of the permanent dentition, and there will be temporary suppression of the bone growth. Tetracyclines are associated with anti-anabolic effect. So there is negative nitrogen balance as well as increase in the blood urea levels. Demiclocycline antagonizes the action of anti-diuretic hormones in kidney, which leads to diabetes insipidus. And there are reports of minocycline associated vestibular toxicity. Hypersensitivity reactions are associated with tetracyclines, and there is chances of super infections because unabsorbed portion of tetracyclines they inhibits the intestinal residual microflora. So with there is overgrowth of opportunistic infections, for example candida in the mouth, skin and intestine. And certain agents like doxycycline and minocycline they are completely absorbed from the intestine, so there is less chance of super infections and less diarrheas. Now the interactions of tetracyclines. These tetracyclines forms insoluble complexes with aluminium, calcium, zinc, magnesium as well as iron. So these complexes are insoluble, and which leads to decreased absorption. And sodium bicarbonate which alter the gastric pH, which reduces the absorption of tetracycline from the stomach. And certain enzyme inducers like phenytoin, phenobarbital, rifampicin, they reduces the plasma levels of tetracycline by increasing its metabolism. And these tetracyclines they potentiate the action of warfarin. Warfarin is an anticoagulant which acts by inhibiting the synthesis of vitamin K dependent clotting factors. So our tetracyclines by inhibiting the intestinal flora, it inhibits the synthesis of vitamin K. Tetracyclines are contraindicated in pregnancy as well as in lactation, and the use of tetracyclines along with diuretics should be cautious because both these agents elevate the blood urea levels. And the use in hepatic as well as in renal impairment patients, so it should be careful. And if you administer tetracycline along with penicillin, so there will be inactivation of the tetracycline, and the use of expert drug should be avoided because it may lead to Fanconi syndrome. Next is tigecycline. It's a synthetic analog of tetracycline included in the group glycyl cycline. It is one of the antibiotics having broadest spectrum of activity. It's a minocycline derivative. This agent is active against tetracycline resistant organisms because they have less affinity to efflux pumps. So bacterial these microorganisms cannot pump out the tigecycline, as well as the ribosomal binding site is less protected to this tigecycline. So this tigecycline is active against tetracycline resistant strains. This tigecycline is preferred mainly in complicated skin, soft tissue as well as intra-abdominal infections where tetracycline resistant organisms are predominant. Route of administration is mainly intravenous route, and this tigecycline is eliminated through bile, safe in renal failure patient. Also it has very less drug interactions. The next broad spectrum antibiotic is chloramphenicol. Chloramphenicol was obtained from Streptomyces venezuelae. Nowadays, this agent is considered only as a reserve drug because this agent is associated with very serious side effects. Due to that thing, it is considered as a reserve drug where the other options are not available. This agent has got a nitrobenzene ring in its structure, and this nitrobenzene ring is responsible for its action as well as bitter taste following oral administration. Generally, chloramphenicol is bacteriostatic in nature, but at high concentration it exhibits bactericidal properties. This chloramphenicol is active against multi-drug resistant enterococcus organisms, mycoplasma, chlamydia and rickettsia. And chloramphenicol is famous for its activity against salmonella organism, that means typhoid. But because of the development of resistance, chloramphenicol is nowadays not preferred in typhoid. Coming to the mechanism of action of chloramphenicol, Chloramphenicol enters the bacterial cells through diffusion. It binds to the 50S subunit. This binding site is close to the binding site of macrolides as well as clindamycin, and it inhibits the protein synthesis in bacteria. It also has the ability to inhibit the protein synthesis in the host organism also. So this protein synthesis inhibition is sensitive to the erythropoietic cell, so which may leads to bone marrow suppression in the host cell. Chloramphenicol binds to a particular area on the 50S subunit of bacterial ribosome. It inhibits bacterial peptidyl transferase. So the transfer of a polypeptide chain from the P site to A site is inhibited, thus inhibiting the bacterial protein synthesis. Inappropriate use of chloramphenicol had led to the development of resistance. So many organisms showing resistance to chloramphenicol which were sensitive previously, and the resistance could be due to reduced permeability, as well as there is development of certain enzymes like acetyl transferase which inactivates the chloramphenicol, and it shows partial cross resistance with tetracyclines also. Coming to the pharmacokinetic features of chloramphenicol, it is rapidly absorbed following oral administration, and it's freely penetrated through serous cavities, as well as it crosses the blood-brain barrier. It crosses the placenta as well as secreted through the breast milk, and it metabolized by conjugating with glucuronic acid in the liver. It has a T-half of around 3 to 5 hours, and it's a powerful enzyme inhibitor. Its dose should be reduced in cirrhotic patients as well as in neonates because they have low conjugating ability. Coming to the adverse effects, the most important adverse effect associated with chloramphenicol is bone marrow suppression. It could be of two types, either non-dose related idiosyncratic reaction. This type is rare, and unpredictable genetic basis could be the reason, and it's seen after repeated use. And the second variant is dose or duration related, and the direct toxic effect or the inhibition of mitochondrial enzymes by the chloramphenicol is responsible for that, and this condition is reversible. And the hypersensitivity reactions are manifested as rashes, fever, or atrophic glossitis or angioedema, and the irritant effects associated with chloramphenicol includes nausea, vomiting, as well as diarrhea. Sometimes this chloramphenicol produces superinfections just like tetracyclines, but less common as compared to tetracyclines. And another condition is gray baby syndrome. If chloramphenicol is used in high dose in neonate, especially in premature neonate, it leads to gray baby syndrome, and it manifests like it within 24 hours. It manifests as vomiting, refusal to suck, cyanosis, irregular or rapid respiration, green color stool. Later it manifests as ash gray cyanosis, which leads to lactic acidosis. Baby become flaccid as well as hypothermic. Usually a 40% of the cases which leads to death of the child. Why neonates develops this gray baby syndrome while they are on high dose chloramphenicol? It's their inability to metabolize the chloramphenicol. Chloramphenicol is metabolized by glucuronide conjugation. For that thing they need glucuronyl transferase, but in neonates they do not have the capacity to metabolize all the high amount of chloramphenicol administered to them. So chloramphenicol will accumulate, which leads to inhibition of electron transport in liver, heart, as well as in skeletal muscle. So this thing will lead to gray baby syndrome. Moving on to the uses of chloramphenicol. Nowadays chloramphenicol is not considered as a first line drug because of the development of resistance as well as its high toxicity. But in certain situations where other drugs are ineffective, in such situations we can prefer chloramphenicol. First is typhoid fever. In typhoid fever we can use third generation cephalosporins or fluoroquinolones, but if there is resistance or allergy, such cases chloramphenicol is preferred. Then bacterial meningitis, usually the penicillins are the drug of choice, but if there is a penicillin allergy, we should prefer chloramphenicol because this agent has a high CSF penetration. And certain patients with those with pregnancy or allergic to tetracycline or children, they if they develop a rickettsial infection, we can prefer uh, chloramphenicol. And certain anaerobic infections like Bacteroides fragilis or intraocular infections like endophthalmitis, we can use chloramphenicol. And the topical preparations of chloramphenicol is effective in conjunctivitis as well as external ear infections. The last thing is about its drug interaction. Chloramphenicol being an enzyme inhibitor, it inhibits the metabolism of several drugs, for example warfarin, tolbutamide, cyclophosphamide, etc. So this drug may accumulate and leads to toxicity. But on the contrary, if the chloramphenicol is administered with strong microsomal enzyme inducers, for example rifampicin or phenobarbital, this drug increases the metabolism of chloramphenicol and there will be therapeutic failure. And that's all about tetracyclines as well as chloramphenicol. Thank you.